Grand Chief Lewis. Hello? Can you hear me? Chief Lewis.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Alright, I think we have you now. You hear me loud and clear?
Loud and clear, very well.
Alright, so fantastic. So we're recording now. So let's get right into it. Tell us a bit about yourself and your work.
Well, I would start by introducing myself. I'm Erik Lewis, Prince of Moruga.
Thank you.
And I belong to the lineage of the chiefs and chieftains. So the Prince of Moruga meant that one day I become chief. And following the death of our Grand Chief at the age of 101.
Yes.
103, sorry. Last year he passed, and this year, I had the first proposal for my inauguration and coronation was supposed to be in June.
Yes.
And then the council asked that it be placed on World Indigenous Day on 9th of August. So on 9th of August, I'll be becoming the chief.
Excellent.
Now, before that, and as the Prince of Moruga, what would I have done? I would work with the people in my community and throughout the country. And it's one of the things that I do. I'm quite involved in nature, the ancient remedies, the herbs, the herbal baths, the making of the medicines, the old medicines as well. So some of the things, it might sound weird and strange to today's science, but for example, like the snake oils,
yes.
The herbal remedies and so on, making the mixtures of them, or even using them directly. We also grow our own tobacco as well, and cure it and use them for smoking ceremonies. That's different. And when we're doing the smoke ceremonies, we also source the materials organically from nature, so it's not just bought stuff. And in keeping with our ancient tradition as well, so all our regalia, which might be the feathers or the bones or etc., has to be authentically sourced, as well as it should be gifted from nature to you. And this is what was told to me. So then when I first heard that, to me I said, wow, then I'm never going to be able to wear a headpiece, or one of those bone chains or anything. And, it's so amazing that just before any huge event that's going to happen, like even before the chief's passing,
yes,
I encountered a dead hawk, and I was like, wow, this is my gift from nature.
Yes.
That I'm worthy to wear this hawk's feathers. Yes. And then another time before that, I'm in the forest and I come across a dead tiger cat. So then I get it. It's still good and fresh. So I get the tiger cat and I skin it and I prepare it and I have the skin here, and that is going to be used as part of my outfit for the coronation.
Wow.
And and another time I dreamt that I'm saving whales. You may have saw that I save whales as well.
Yes. We noted that on your social media.
Yeah, so I save whales, and it's so prophetic because I know to do that based on a dream that I had.
Yes. Wow. So it's all a lot of the knowledge that you're working with right now is ancestral. You're getting it directly from the spiritual realm.
It's ancestral, so whatever I didn't learn from the chief. Yeah. And I couldn't learn every single thing, the way how my life is set up now.
Yes.
But some of the things came to me through dreams and visions.
Yes.
And that is what's magical, I should say.
Yes.
Not fantastic, just amazing. But in the indigenous world, we are allowed to use the word magical because a lot of what we do has connection with the spirit world. And I'm not speaking about evil spirits here. Yes, there are evil spirits, and yes, there are good spirits. But a lot of times our audience are Christians, and so on. That's good because I also identify with Christianity as well, right? But we also have to recognize that our spirituality as indigenous people also sometimes it's misinterpreted as wicked and evil,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
but it is not. Because in the same way that in Catholicism that they pray for the dead and they pray for the spirit of their ancestors,
Right.
indigenous people, don't we not honor our ancestors
Of course.
who have passed?
Of
Don't
course.
we not pray for them? Don't we not communicate with them? And it's
Definitely.
the same thing that you see in religious beliefs. And the same thing with dreams, you know, the same thing with dreams. So sometimes I'm not just guided by a dream just like that, but I wait to see what is going to happen. And when I dreamt me saving the whales, I live in Trinidad and the southern part of it. I said, this is the most impossible dream I could dream. I was really angry. 3 days later, exactly what I had dreamt is exactly what I was supposed to be doing
Yes.
to save this whale.
Yes. Wow. Wow. So I mean,
And after saving,
no, no. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
after saving the whale, I swam the whale out back at sea, got it there, and it's all well and good. And I left, and then, I left, and I went over to another beach.
Yes.
And I was just contemplating all of what had happened, what had transpired, and I'm asking, what is the lesson in this for me?
Yes.
But that wasn't the end of it. Later on, I would get a phone call that there isn't a whale dead on the beach. And I said, a whale dead on the beach? I said, this is
Wow.
impossible. I said, I already saved the whale already, and it's good, and it's safe, and it's gone. He said, no, Prince, you need to come here right now. There is a whale here, and it's being loaded onto a van. I said, well, tell them I said that they need to stop whatever they're doing with the whale, because by compulsory acquisition act of the Moruga Museum, I'm enacting
Yes.
that whale belongs to the museum with immediate effect, and no one is to remove it
Yes.
until I arrive. So I went, and it was the exact whale that I had saved, and I said, oh my God,
Hmm.
I had risked my life saving this whale, and here it is being, it's dead now, and because someone harpooned it out at sea when it would have gone
Oh.
out.
Yes.
And I took that to the council, and I asked the council, and I asked the chief, and I was most, angered. And I said, and the chief said to me, listen, he said, you just did a great deed of saving a whale, and after it died, he said, that's good. He said, it shows strength, it shows resilience,
Yes.
it shows your commitment to the sea and to nature. And the chief said, and the ocean repays you with the whale's life and its entire body
Yes.
itself
Yes.
for your works that you dictate. And that really, really touched me deeply. So after that, the whale teeth would also become a symbol of my princehood,
Yes.
as well as the teeth would also be shared with the chief.
Yes.
So it would also be one day when I become chief, I would wear a 2 or triple layer necklace
Yes.
of the whale teeth. And while I'm prince, I would wear one layer. And then I was like, wow, so this is the meaning of it. This is why all of this happened.
Yes.
But I couldn't, at the moment, I
You
couldn't
couldn't see it at the
all
time.
of that happening.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So that's just one little magical story. But in my life, I have seen amazing things,
Yes.
and where nature is involved, where dreams are, where little prophecies are spoken. One of the prophecies about me, I believe, is that when I first accepted being the Prince of Moruga, I'm also called the Prince of the South.
Yes. Because Moruga is in the south.
We are the southernmost part of the Caribbean,
Yes.
just before Venezuela. So
Yes.
imagine, I'm the Prince of the South, right?
Yes.
Indigenous Prince of the South. But all of the Caribbean, I'm the Prince of the South.
Yes.
And one of the other princes said to me, he said, listen, there's a prophecy about you. I said, and what is it? He said, it is said, I'm speaking about 15 years ago now.
Yes.
He said, it is said, when the Prince of the South raises up, he will raise up his people.
Yes.
I said,
Yes.
I didn't say anything, but in my mind, I'm saying, this is the most preposterous thing. I said, I can't see any way that I'm going to raise anyone up.
Yes.
Because that time my focus was archaeological excavations. So I do a lot of archaeology as well. And based on my archaeological finds, I've excavated over 20 Amerindian archaeological villages,
Wow.
right? And several sites throughout Trinidad. And I have also visited some sites in Tobago.
Yes.
I also hold archaeological I also my museum now contains artifacts from Saint Lucia and I think Grenada as well,
Yes.
because the Archaeological Society did some work in 1960s. The person who died he was a priest, and the church contributed all his collection and all his finding to the Moruga Museum.
Beautiful.
So imagine, think about all of that. So I thought, well, this is the work that this is how I'm going to lift up the indigenous people.
Yes.
But that was far from it. As time would go by, I would establish different indigenous groups throughout Trinidad.
Yes.
And work with different indigenous people throughout Trinidad and Tobago. And then the migrants started coming in.
Yes.
So then with the migrants, we have the Warao people from mainland Venezuela.
Yes.
And then I started a school for them also, which you would have been following on my Instagram and my Facebook, where I have a school for them. And I teach them in their language. And I teach them English if they would like to, but they are not penalized, they are not tested, they are not bound to or obliged to learn English or Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Because I always think that we have to be careful how we educate, that we are not educating like the colonials did.
And that we're not educating away our indigenous heritage and culture.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I teach them to take pride in their own culture. So part of the learning that we have in the activity is the plaiting of the palms, which is something that we do indigenous work.
We have it here as well. The thatch palm. Yeah, man. We do that as well.
The plaiting of the palms, sharing the ancient remedies.
Yes.
Inculcating a sense of pride and worthiness by being indigenous. Because one of the things that would have been done over the centuries is that the colonial world has also painted a picture that indigenous cultures, it's uncivilized, it's
correct,
unworthy, it's filthy, it's not deemed important, it's witchcraft, it's sorcery. It's in Trinidad we say obia.
Yes.
They might call it voodoo. I mean, it's none of the above.
Yes.
And now there is for lack of a better word, let's use the word renaissance, of where people are now coming to the knowledge that, listen, indigenous cultures are the one to preserve the environment, the ones to guide forest reforestation, to guide climate change,
yes,
to guide how we can live in one and unison with nature and environment.
Yes.
And, these are some things that I have been working with, even diplomatically, meeting with all these different ambassadors and so on from different countries of the world. As you would have been seeing, that I have had several meetings. Just a few days ago, I had a meeting with the ambassador of China came to visit me. I mean, I haven't had time to really post that yet.
Yes.
But he visited me here at the Great Hall of the First People, and he was quite impressed as well. I also have a pending visit by the ambassador of Venezuela, and you also I had meetings with the delegation ambassador for the European Union,
yes,
the Vatican ambassador for Pope Francis, and I continue to do that. But I know some people ask sometimes, why are you having all these international relations? I said, listen, if we as indigenous people stay to our bushes alone, how do we get the message of the importance of our indigenous culture across the people who see us as less?
Exactly. And how do we keep up with this new age, with this new time that we're in, if we do not reach out and make international partners?
Exactly. So that's what I have been doing. So I've forged a lot of international allegiances and alliances.
Yes.
And I'm happy that you are part of it, that we can now see that we are forging a good alliance and allegiance to each other and to each other's country and to each other's culture.
Yeah.
Because we share that same culture of origin and that same history.
Exactly.
I mean, with just more tweaks, but it's the same.
No, we are one, which is, even in our last correspondence, that's something that we were discussing. But, I want to touch on Moruga. You're from Trinidad and Tobago, specifically Moruga. You mentioned already that Moruga is in the south. But what else can you tell us about Moruga? Its history, its special features, anything that you can share.
Sure. So Moruga was the first point of entry for the indigenous people based on its geographical location.
Yes.
So close to Venezuela. We are 2 hours in a boat, in a pirogue from Venezuela.
Yes.
I mean, from all the way in interior Venezuela. Yes. I don't just mean just to the shore edge.
Yes.
To the shore edge, it might be an hour and 15 minutes or so. So we are actually closer to Venezuela than we are to Port of Spain.
Yes. Wow. So basically, this is the story of our ancestors traveling the Orinoco River, coming out at the
Exactly.
Yes.
Correct. So it's the story of our ancestors traveling the Orinoco, coming out of the mouth of the Orinoco and the Mariosa and all these little big rivers and so on, and just landing here in Moruga, settling up here, and whenever they're ready, they go back, depending on the tide and the moon. So the sailing and the rowing to get here is something done indigenously. By indigenous tradition, how to get here quickly and how to return quickly by canoe.
Yes.
And there's an art to that. So if you take a boat, you might say, oh, this is difficult, whatever. But if you know how to do it based on the tide and the falling of the tide and the flow of the Orinoco River and the moon change, etc., you're able to do that quite fast. It's like, and again, I would say it's like magic when you know how nature works.
Yes.
And how work with nature to get what you need done. And so Moruga is the first point of entry for the indigenous. Yeah. Secondly, Moruga is also the first point of encounter for the first European explorers to this part of the world, at least let's put it that way, according to the contemporary history.
Yes.
It's also where Columbus also encountered Moruga, Trinidad. And from here, Trinidad got the name Trinidad.
Because that means Trinity in Spanish, right?
Trinity, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Because to the south here in Moruga, we have 3 hills called the Trinity Hills, which are 3 indigenous hills as well. So when I become chief, I'm going to change the name of those hills and give them 3 indigenous names.
Yes. So what you're basically alluding to then is that Trinidad got its name because of the European encounter with the geography of Moruga.
Correct.
Wow.
That's the second part.
Yes.
The third part of Moruga is that because it was the first port of entry for the Europeans, it continued to be for a short period of time, just over a few decades or so.
Yes.
But it is also where our first enslaved Africans seem to have landed here in Moruga in the early 1600s.
Right. Okay.
So I also plan to have a park I already purchased that property already. I purchased a property. What I do also is that I purchase the properties that I deem heritage sites.
Yes.
That I deem worthy of heritage and preservation.
Yes.
And then I turn them into heritage sites.
Excellent.
For the public.
Excellent.
So I purchased another one, and in that area, it's where the first slaves would have been landed. And I'm going to create the African Memorial Heritage Emancipation Park.
Yes. Nice.
In honor of our ancestors who died.
Yes.
Because when they were landed in Moruga, because of the harsh environment and I guess lack of good food, etc., and attention, it is said that all 400 of those African enslaved that perished.
Wow.
So that remains on my heart and it hurts.
Yes. Have you ever recovered any of those bones?
No, I haven't, because the soils here won't allow for a long preservation of that at all, because it's the constitution of it would deteriorate it quickly.
Okay.
But I intend to have a memorial in their honor.
Yes.
Soon enough, let's say within 2 years. But so that's part of it. Moruga is very, very green. It's lush green, beautiful. It's like it has a resemblance of the Blue Mountains in Jamaica.
Yes.
We have a few really nice high hills here, but not as high as yours.
Yes.
But very, very pristine and beautiful, green and clean. We have a very nice beachfront. We have a few rivers, several flora and fauna. The monkeys, the tiger cats, and the game, deer, the goatee, iguanas, and so on. We have the snakes also.
You are a conservationist, which you've expressed earlier. What I want to know is, you have a lot of that big game, but you're a smaller island than, say, Jamaica, which we have none. Is it because of your closeness to South America? Just 2 hours away by boat, you say, why you would have those large game?
Well, yes, that would be one of the reasons also.
Mm-hmm.
But apart from that, I'm also a protector of the Trinity Reserve. I'm also one of the protectors of the Trinity Reserve, which covers a few thousand acres of land, and this is not that the property belongs to me directly, but I'm one of the
You're a trustee,
the custodians, and trustee of this. And so we have protection of our wildlife and the natural environment, and that is how we basically, ensure that our animals and our game can reproduce. Because I also object to a lot of hunting.
Yes.
I mean, I own some of the main properties. That's the gateway to the reserves.
Right.
So once my properties don't allow you to enter, and I don't allow hunting, how are you going to get there?
Precisely.
So I prohibit a lot of the hunting, and I prohibit a lot of deforestation.
Yes.
Just by being a good owner and a good custodian. And I think that's ways that people who have little influence and little resources can utilize their resources to help protect nature, protect the environment, conserve it, and to help shape the way that other persons view the environment, or to deter them from taking advantage of the natural environment.
Correct.
And abusing it.
Yes, correct. I want to shift a bit, but before I do, I want to ask you, give us a little detail about your museum, because I know that that's one of your biggest passions, and that's one. Tell us about your work, building that museum, maintaining it, etc.
Yeah. So I started my first museum. By the way, I'm 38 years old.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you're lucky,
I forget something.
but the weight of your accomplishments, it's good.
I know. I started young.
Yes.
So I started collecting when I was around 9 years old. And my grandfather actually started me off with a coin collection.
Yes.
And with that, I collected, and he would always instill in me the importance of these historical stuff. So I did destroy a few of them as a child.
Yes.
I was not a perfect collector. I was horrible at first.
Yes.
And then I realized, I got a book at the library that showed me the value of the coins, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I just defaced this one and this one and this one.
Yes.
And I realized that I had defaced some real silver coins and real gold coins and all of this stuff, which my grandmother was not hesitant of placing in my hands.
Yes.
And doing that, he taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. The most valuable lesson.
Yeah.
So from a very, very, very early age, I had a quick regret, which I would shape for the rest of my life.
Yes.
Through conservation and through preservation of historical stuff.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
So I did, and he didn't regret, and he never scolded me. He never quarreled or anything. when I did that.
Yes.
He said you would understand the value of what you have a little later. He said you are going to regret any wrong thing that you do with this. And he said that, and he left me with a smile, and I could see that smile on his face.
Yes.
And that grin. And from there on, I collected things and I put them together. And when I was 27, I commissioned the museum. The Moruga Museum is the first one that I commissioned. And after commissioning it, I was able to source a property, building, everything, renovate it. By the way, that time I was not making a lot of money. I just had like some inheritance money or some kind of little funds there, nothing much at all. And I had a good relationship in the community, so I took stuff credit. I got building materials credited from the local community, and so I restored this old building. And the next year, in 2013, November 2013, I would open this Moruga Museum, which now I would put Amerindian artifacts. A lot of my Amerindian artifacts and archaeological research went into there. I had a natural science collection. Have a natural science collection. The museum was set up in an ethnological way, where I have like the European collection, the Amerindian, the African, the East Indian, and Chilean collection, and so on. And I also had my numismatic collection there with the coins and the money. And that museum basically transformed. It has been a driving agent to transform the community itself. So because of that, Moruga saw thousands and tens of thousands of visitors coming to Moruga every year.
Beautiful.
And I had no idea what I was doing and the gravity of it. But it also was also a good hook also for ambassadors and so on to come to Moruga to do and to see the museum.
Actually learn the truth about Trinidad.
So they would learn the true history of my people, which I will write the story, and not someone else bringing the story for me. And based on the research that I would have been doing, disseminate the information and be a native storyteller of the history of my people, and not someone else from not a foreign party from Europe or from Cambridge or from England or from wherever telling this history of my people. I was able to do that based on archaeological finds that I would have been making. And so I continued with that, and 5 years later I would launch Chocolate Festival and Chocolate Heritage Day and Food Festival in Moruga. And that year I spoke about establishing a chocolate factory and a cocoa and chocolate museum. Guess what?
Beautiful.
The next year I would purchase another property, and that property would be an old cocoa and coffee plantation with a collection of buildings from the early 1900s and some of them from the late 1800s and early 1800s, etc. The buildings contained archival documents over the last 100 years of people who lived and worked on the plantation. Everything that they did, all those records. So I bought the entire archive and everything. And then I transformed that, and I was able to make another museum, the National Cocoa and Chocolate Museum. And now that museum too, this second museum, again, has been able to be a real, attention bringer to the community. And an amazing way of sharing the history again of the plantation era, the plantation period, where our ancestors would have gone through, the things that they would have done, the meager wages they would have acquired while working on the plantation, and it also gave details of how the cocoa fields were maintained and how to best develop production. And coincidentally, guess what?
What's that?
On this estate, I would have sulfur springs.
Wow. What?
A mini mud volcano and a mini pitch and small pitch pools coming up on the same compound. So now it's a big tourist attraction.
So they say watch out Pitch Lake, because you have your own.
So now I have my own. So I'm one of the few persons in the country to actually have that on their compound.
Wow.
And I mean, apart from that, one of the areas that the estate will constitute, well, the estate on that the museum sits on, it's like around 20 acres. It's a reasonable
Yes.
20-acre estate,
Yes. Yes.
and it's considerably small to me because the other estate is like 250 acres.
Correct.
But what's interesting about this one is that it has all these relics of
Yeah.
history.
So the historical
And in this
value
area,
outweighs the size.
and in this same area, it's where the Grand Chief, it was close to the residence of the Grand Chief, as well as his father, and to the councils.
Yeah.
The ancient indigenous councils were held on the same estate years, many years ago.
Oh.
Like probably almost like about 80 years ago.
Yeah.
The last council meeting, the last
Really?
ancient council meeting would have been held here.
Really?
You know? Yeah. And so what I did later, I basically erected a statue of the indigenous people and a chief to
Yes.
symbolize all the chiefs who would have ruled, all the chiefs,
Yes.
all of them, plural,
Yes.
who would have ruled these lands over the past few hundred years and thousands of years. And that was unveiled 1 year before the Grand Chief died at the age of 103.
Beautiful. So, yes, because I believe I'd seen on your social media with him consecrating that statue and inaugurating it. Yes. That's wow, that's beautiful. You know, for our listeners, we didn't really get down into this as yet, but which indigenous ethnic group do you belong to? And could you give us a brief rundown of the history of your people?
Right. So the interesting thing about me is that I really take great pride in being a person of
Yes.
mixed descent.
Yes.
And so on one side, on my maternal side, it's what we call the Caribs. And
Right.
what do you all call the Caribs?
Carinya.
Carinya. Yeah, we say the same. But for us, Carinya means meat.
Oh, so like meat eaters, kind of like, okay.
Karina Wahabu, it means roasted meat. Actually, it means roasted chicken.
Wow.
You know, and so it's funny. So that would be one side, and even earlier, the indigenous group started mixing as well.
Yes.
And so I'm also Warao descent as well.
Yes.
And on my paternal side, my great grandmother ran away from St. Vincent to marry my great grandfather because he was African. He was what we call the American, one of the colonial marines of the 1800s.
Yes.
Descendant.
Yes.
And so she ran away to Trinidad, married him, and so had my grandfather and history. So I also have some Garifuna lineage as well in me. So that would basically establish my lineage of indigenous descent. I also have some European ancestry, Spanish and English and Portuguese, I think, and whatever else in the European world. And on one side, I also have East Indian as well on my maternal side, on my maternal side. So my mother's mother was East Indian.
Yes.
So, and my grandfather as well was he was mixed, and he also had he would have had Nigerian descent as well.
So what I want to really ask you is, based on what you said, and you just mentioned the indigenous nations mixing, our indigenous people in the Caribbean seem to not have a problem with tribes joining them and, coming. What comment would you have to say about that, Did our people always accept, friendly outsiders then?
Sometimes we did and sometimes we didn't.
Yes.
And that's fine. That's fine.
Yes.
But whenever they did accept outsiders, it was genuine.
Yes.
And whenever we did, it was out of great and good love, genuine love.
Yes.
And my chief also said the same thing.
Yes.
And today, I have also accepted and welcomed, for example, the Polynesian
Yes.
as part of us also.
Yes.
The Polynesian, so I also had an induction ceremony for one of the Polynesian chieftain descendants.
Yes.
And he also in turn had an induction for me by presenting me a staff,
Yes.
a transition staff as I transitioned from prince to chief, king. They call it king
Yes.
as well. You know, so during that transition, that's a great thing. As well as with our indigenous people here in Moruga also mixed with the Africans.
Yes. Yes.
As well, and they live very well and had their children and grandchildren.
Of
And
course.
today, you know, we are offspring of all of that.
Yes.
And that's how indigenous people share and live. And today, my indigenous communities are mixed, generally people of mixed descent, and I still have my pure-blooded ones from Venezuela.
Yes.
I've also been voted in and accepted as chief from some of the northern parts of Venezuela, where my Waro people are directly from, because I also have programs and so on for them.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
So some of the other chiefs from Venezuela should also be here for my coronation ceremony.
Oh, that's fantastic news, man. This is excellent to hear. This is excellent to hear. So, what I want to now touch on is you're ascending to the highest office of leadership of your people. Could you tell us about the previous holder of that office of Grand Chief, and what was the process for you to reach where you are now, about to accept this title, Grand Chief?
Well, our previous Grand Chief, he was inaugurated and anointed. He was anointed in Venezuela that would be like 70 years ago now.
Oh.
He would have been 100 and, what, 3, 4, he would have been 104 years old if he was alive right now.
Yes.
And so he was anointed in Venezuela and appointed there, and then came back to Trinidad and went back and traveled around the world, etc. Spent time in the Amazon and
Yes.
throughout Latin America with the indigenous people, etc.
Yes.
And then in an old age came back to Trinidad, and basically we worked together on, fulfilling as much indigenous work as possible.
And for our listeners who don't know, could you mention his name as well, please?
His name was Grand Chief Morning Star Paul Navarro.
Yes.
And he was Warao and Carib descent. Same with me because he's my cousin.
Yes.
My good cousin. So we have the same lineage, same everything, same bloodline.
Yes. Yes.
And the crazy thing about it is that he is the first cousin of my grandfather, and my grandfather was born in 1898.
Wow.
And the Grand Chief was born in 1919.
Yes. Yes.
So according to the, let's say, the natural order of things, I'm supposed to be like very old.
Yes.
If my mother was supposed to be born a long time ago.
Yes.
But my grandfather had her in his old age.
Yes.
And my grandmother was in her old age as well.
Amazing.
Which is like a miracle.
Yes.
But so the Grand Chief, basically, he did that. He won hats, I must say. He had a good relationship with the other chiefs in the Caribbean on this side.
Yes.
With Suriname, Venezuela, and on this side down here.
Yes.
Because they will have functions and ceremonies over the years. And so while at his passing, I was thrown on the spot. Yes. Because the other chief of Arima, which is the Santa Rosa First People, him and his team arrived to my Grand Chief's funeral an hour and a half later. Do you know what that meant? That meant that I would have to do and facilitate all of the official ceremonies for the Grand Chief's funeral.
Let me say this. Listen, I have that question. So please, about the rights, let's not go into that yet because I'm really excited about that. But please hold that.
The rights are so complicated. But anyway, let's put that to the side for the moment.
Yes.
But anyway, So succeeding the Grand Chief, it's me here now, and I was supposed to be only Grand Chief for Muruga only, and for me, it wasn't a desire that I had to be chief. I never had that desire. It's not a desire. It's not something that I said, oh, when I want to be chief, I want. I would send, someone else to be chief. In the meantime, I would always push somebody else to be in front if they were.
Yes, yes.
And I even had two delegates to put before me before my time would come when I'm old. I would say I would be an old chief,
Yes,
or probably not old at all. I'll just be satisfied just being the prince.
yes.
And what happened? One of them became incapacitated.
Yes.
The other not knowledgeable of anything of the rites, the rituals, the this, the that, the functions, and was not known either. So then, if you're not known, you're not going to win any votes. You're
Yes.
obsolete.
Yes.
Anyway, immediately after Grand Chief passing, I started getting all these allegiances from around the country, first off.
Yes.
And people who were not even members were even asking if they can vote. They said, well, even if I'm not a member, I would like to vote for you. Like, is there going to be an online poll? First, the council is the one who votes. And if the council decides there's an online poll, then I said, well, I've never heard of an online poll or an election of a chief yet.
Yes. Yes.
But anyway, also coming in, then the ministry, the government ministry here, responsible for indigenous people would be the Ministry of Community Development, Culture, the Arts and Sports.
Right.
So then they visited, the permanent secretary visited, and they're like, so what is next?
Yes.
So the next would be my appointment. And they said, okay, great, well, let us be informed and we need to know everything that's going on. And then the ministry gets involved and they find, well, this should be a great and a grand event. And I'm like, I just wanted a very simple ceremony.
Yes.
And, in my little area of Muruga. Then I was voted in for the south of Trinidad.
Yes.
Then I'm voted in for the central of Trinidad.
Yes.
Then I'm voted in by other northern groups in Trinidad. Then I also set up other groups in northern Trinidad.
Yes.
And before you know it, then Tobago is on board.
Yes.
And then I'm like, this is not what I signed up for.
It's evolving rapidly before your eyes.
And then it started evolving rapidly before my eyes. And not just that, then I started getting endorsements came in internationally, and then also Suriname pledged their allegiance and said that they accept me as their chief and their leader.
Yes.
And because they were going through a tumultuous situation, and I also sent some videos to them for encouragement.
Yeah.
And I guess they were really, really pleased and happy about that.
Yes.
So Suriname got on board. Then Venezuela keeps writing me ever so often with these other chiefs because I also take care of them and send them food and clothes and so on. A lot of that, and well, you would have seen the work that I do with their children, with indigenous children who are displaced here in Trinidad.
Yes.
And all of the work that I would have been doing over the years, obviously have been monitored by all these different leaders, indigenous leaders around the country and around the world, to whoever would have been following. And they think and they see that I would make a good chief.
Yes. Yes.
For them and for their people.
Yes.
And as I said to you, I also incorporate what I do in modern time with diplomatic relations.
Of course.
And being knowledgeable, being well spoken, being articulate, and visible,
and presenting yourself in a modern, in a classy light. Then, for want of a better word, a good image.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, and I realized that if I don't do that, because one time I met an ambassador, and I'm like, hi, I'd like to, invite you to Muruga, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And she paid me no attention.
Yes.
None whatsoever. Yes. And that was a German ambassador. Yes. And then because I attended the function regular as Erik Lewis.
Yes.
And I said, well, I'm the principal. She's like, okay, whatever. Like, she gave me that look like, okay, whatever.
Yes.
And then I'm attending another function, the World Peace Research, International Peace Research conference.
Yes.
At the Hilton, and I'm dressed regally in all my faculty, in all my regalia.
Yes.
Well, not all of it, but parts of
Yes.
it.
Yes.
And then she meets me, she's like, wow, well, now I could see that you're the prince. If I
Ah.
had seen you like this before, then I would have, recognized you or
Yes.
understand who
Yes.
you are.
She didn't see
And,
tradition.
that, exactly, that helped me to realize that people put a face value to you and not just a value to what they hear or think or perceive, but that face value changes that perception drastically.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
after that, I didn't care to have a meeting with her anyway. After,
Yes.
so I never invited her to visit, and the same
First
thing for
impressions, you know.
some of my other diplomats. So once I blacklist them too. They don't know that, so I blacklist them, and then I take action by
Yes.
removing things from my spaces that might be part of their culture,
Yes.
because I know I might sound horrid for doing that, but it's the same thing that they might have.
It's
I'm not planning on becoming like them, but they would have done similar
it's
things to my
diplomatic
ancestors anyway.
protocol. It's diplomatic protocol. If you had offended them, I can assure you, especially if they consider that you're small or weak, they're gonna brush you aside and totally disregard you. I totally understand that as a student of international relations. I
So
fully
I do
understand.
that to them,
Yes.
and I have some other things to do in my tricks in my books. I
Yes.
attended one diplomatic function, and where I had brought, I always take gifts to everyone when I'm visiting,
Yes.
and I put these gifts for them. And obviously, I'm not going to carry it with me. And I only had with me a photographer, but I hadn't any handy assistant with
Yes.
me that day because I had to leave Moruga very early morning, so I couldn't have a whole entourage with me.
Yes.
But anyway, so I get to Port of Spain and I invite the ambassador's attaché to bring one of his assistants to receive, a gift. And they were so rude. You know what I did? I gave them it. I just presented it in the car park.
Yes.
I left, and after that, I never made arrangements to meet that ambassador evermore.
Yes.
And then the ambassador says to me when he met me, he said, "Whenever in Port of Spain, you can just come into my office." I said, "Listen," I said, "I will never just come into your office." I said, "Because your people would not be of the best protocol if I do visit like that." And I said,
Exactly.
I would not like to be there without the necessary protocols because I would not like to be insulted in any
Exactly.
way.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know?
We have to
But
keep
anyway,
pride in
that's part
ourselves
of it.
as a people. We have to look at ourselves as independent people, or they're forever going to keep us in a subservient position. So I think.
And always
Mhm.
know our worth and our
Yes.
value. We are
Yes.
no less than any of their ministers or presidents
Never.
or prime ministers.
Never.
Come on, their titles are for a very short time. Mine is
Exactly.
until I die.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. And I think that this transitions very smoothly into my next question, which is, what are the duties and responsibilities of a Grand Chief?
The duties. Now, well, I mean, I have always been fulfilling them anyway, even before
Yes.
becoming even before the title.
Yes.
And because immediately after Grand Chief's passing, I've been called upon to fulfill his roles and responsibilities, which basically are ceremonious roles. Like, for example, I'm called to do opening ceremonies,
Yes.
and to do this opening ceremonies, the passage to that might be a smoke ceremony. The water ceremonies and the water ceremonies aren't very they aren't done as often as smoke ceremonies.
Right.
So I'm called to do the ceremonies to open stuff, opening of this, launching of that,
Yes.
blessing of this one, blessing of the children. So when the children are born, the indigenous children are born, they bring the children me to bless them, or they invite me to come to their homes. And once I arrive, it's a whole other protocol. So immediately they bring out the benches and the seats and so on for me to sit on.
Yes.
Once I get there. And the indigenous groups know that.
Yes.
And then basically, well, do the diplomatic work as well. That's part of the work of the Grand Chief.
Yes.
And basically setting the what to say, the priorities straight, setting the records right,
Yes.
making sure that
So
our
setting the
peoples are
stage for
represented and respected,
yes. So setting the international stage then, and
and
setting
setting the international stage.
yes, yes,
And even recently, I also look out for my indigenous peoples, even if they are under other chiefs.
correct.
I'm not going to call any names,
Yeah.
but recently, some of my indigenous people who are under another chief in the north of Trinidad,
Yes.
and then I'm following up with them. I said, how are things, and how are you all being taken care of? How are things being done there? And they kept complaining. Said, Prince, no, they call me Cacique.
Yeah.
Cacique.
Yes.
Cacique, this is the problem. We're not getting good wages. We're not being fairly taken care of. We're not being treated well. And we want to leave. I said, hey, listen, hold on for me until after my inauguration.
Yes.
Until when I called them, I said, hey, I'm coming up to visit you all now. I'm on the way.
Yes.
And we'll have a small ceremony.
Yeah.
And I said, call us on video now. I call them on video and they show me that they are no longer there in that area.
What?
And they were in an area that was designated indigenous grounds.
Yes.
By the government.
Yes.
By that other chief. And I'm saying, this is what some of our indigenous leaders have to be careful of, is making the same mistakes that the colonial people, the colonial masters made.
But you see,
deliberately,
the issue with
against
it,
our ancestors.
The issue with it, though, is we harken back to earlier in the conversation, the education system. So we don't want to educate away our traditions. But a lot of our people now in this time have been, because even we've all been educated by this system. So we have to become more sensitive about our culture.
Sensitive in the way that we treat and deal with it and deal with the others.
Yes.
And so they all, so I look out for my people to those extents, nationally and internationally. And internationally, where they have problems and situations, I would send a video addressing them and addressing their government or to whomever they would need assistance or collegiality or some form of endorsement from me or from another entity to help them seem strong. Because strength is made in unity.
Yes.
And when the colonial masters saw the unity of the indigenous people, because I'll tell you, there were paramount chiefs existing hundreds of years ago in the Caribbean between the islands of the Caribbean. Right? There were paramount chiefs who worked together from Jamaica straight back down to Trinidad to Venezuela. And between Venezuela and Trinidad, and those are great for us to know that they existed. And when you contemplate how much travel they would have done by canoe or by canoe to get from one area to the next to ensure that our indigenous cultures are preserved and protected, that in itself is great zeal and dedication, and shows resilience of our people.
I'd like to cut in right there, and I think that the archaeology story of how our ancestors moved from South America, right? It makes the way that it's told academically makes us feel like our ancestors just left. Perhaps as them saying our colloquialism, and that was that. We cut ties, that was that. But what you're saying here now shows us that it's vital for us to be unified, because that's the way it was done. That was the protocol.
It was. Because when one chief had a problem, and a lot of the indigenous rebellion occurred around the same time. And what's interesting is that a lot of that is not disseminated. A lot of that knowledge is not shared.
Right.
And I have met with other archaeologists, not just even my own work, but even my work that I have had reassessed and reanalyzed with other archaeologists, Caribbean archaeologists, based in the Netherlands and so on. And when we share archaeological history and archaeological talk, trust me, I wish the world could hear it. I wish, and we share so much great information together. Okay, for example, in my collection, I have artifacts from mainland Venezuela, which are now in Trinidad. We have stuff that's from Peru here in Trinidad. So where did it come from? Obviously, it came from Peru, but it showed migration, it showed trade, it showed
Yes.
barter.
And the
We have some other stone from your country here,
You're
from archaeological sites.
you're
Why?
kidding.
Because it showed that they traveled from St. Lucia also,
You're
from
kidding.
Tobago back here.
So my mind is officially blown, and I'm gonna ask you now, formally, right? We're gonna have to have a part two where we possibly maybe even have to do a video call. So if you're okay with that, so that we can view these artifacts and really just display some of this to the people. Because it makes no sense we wait for people to hear when we have this kind of medium. And I think that having this medium, this is like our electronic canoe right now. We just have to find a way now to work together to put this forward. This is fantastic. I want to then touch on, could you give us an idea of what the first major initiatives that you plan to take on and implement once you are sent to the office of Grand Chief?
Wow. Well, not that I have thought about it. The first thing that I'm going to do, the first thing that I hope is done good, clean, and smooth would be that whole ceremony.
Yes.
And just to give you a little rundown synopsis on it, it's a very complex ceremony because it's the first of its kind in 300 years.
Yes.
And I'll be having a lot of ancient ceremonies done in it. Now, I know about this. We know about these ancient ceremonies because the chief, our former chief, and I, we would speak about all these ceremonies, and I'd always be coaxed and taught
Yes.
and this and schooled in it.
Yes.
And sourcing all these things from nature, as I said, directly, and all this drama. So that's my first thing, basically seeing all of these things fulfilled and materialize throughout. And let me just give you the rundown. So basically, it begins at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception in Trinidad.
Yes.
And one of the reasons, I didn't plan to speak about this before, but I said I'll speak about it after my coronation.
Yes.
But one of the reasons that we plan to have it at the cathedral, because indigenous people need to remember this. Much of the churches and cathedrals of Christianity sits today on the grounds of ancient indigenous sites.
Holy sites.
Ancient indigenous sacred sites.
Yes.
On the backs of our ancestors.
Yes.
On the bones of our ancestors.
And in some cases, the churches were built by them too. Yes.
And stones and rocks were carried and built by them too.
Yes.
So it's a mutual space of both worlds and all good energies shared in those same one grounds.
Yes.
And I'm already getting questioned. Why does it start at the cathedral? I said, listen,
Right.
Grand Chief told me that was my direct descendant of the owners of the property of that cathedral where my ancestors lived.
Yes.
I have
So it's
the
your
greatest
legacy.
claim over that space more than anyone else.
Yes. It's your legacy.
It's my legacy, it's my heritage.
Yes.
I'm not afraid of that.
Yes.
And I'm not afraid of anything there either.
Yes.
And from there, after that, we'll have a parade from there to the Red House, to the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, which again is another area where our ancestors where our ancestral bones were buried.
Wow.
And under the Trinidad's Parliament, it's where they had found several indigenous bones, etc.
Yes.
So that will be two of the areas that I'm covering as chief.
Yes.
During consecration, during coronation, during anointing, and then the third part of the ceremony would be motorcade, where we mark now. We will re-walk, but by driving.
Yes.
We reroute an ancestral path from Port Spain back to Moruga.
Yes.
And then we take seat on the throne, the seat of the Grand Chief
Yes.
in Moruga, where the former Grand Chief would have sat.
Yes.
And that's how that ceremony would go. But for me, I think just even addressing the people after becoming Grand Chief, it would be something really, really amazing and
Yes.
quite full of emotions and love and all spiritual good, because this would be the first time in the country's history, because I was told that the other time Trinidad had a full chief for the entire country
Yes.
was Chief High Arima,
Yes.
who died.
And that's how Arima got its name.
And through him Arima got its name.
Yes. Yes.
But the thing with Arima remains sovereign only for the Santa Rosa people in a part of the, in that part.
Yes.
And they were not able to bring the indigenous groups together, or to work together with indigenous groups very well either.
Yes. Yes. So you feel that that's going to be one of your objectives then, to try that again? Unification process.
Well, I didn't even have to try. But that's how I have been elected. That's how I have been elected as Grand Chief of both Trinidad and Tobago, because all the groups, all of the other indigenous groups have pledged their commitment, allegiance, and loyalty and voted me in as their chief.
Yes, yes, yes. Excellent.
So I'm Chief Elect of Trinidad and Tobago, Grand Chief.
Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. So now we're gonna get into something that you touched into, and I said, boy, I'm so excited. Hold on. Well, you performed the traditional funeral rites for Grand Chief Navarro. What can you tell us about that ceremony? You had started to tell us the story about how it. Please go back over that.
That story. Now, the thing about it, before the Grand Chief even died, like while he was ailing, I would realize that I would be going in the forest, I would get the incense wood.
Yeah.
I'd find it easily.
Yes.
Okay, I would get my headpiece. Alright, another headpiece, I'll get the bird.
Yes.
The horn.
Yes.
One of my cousins sent me a gift of a set of what is this, crystals and so on. Alright, so I'm like thinking, okay, what is this for? I'll put this in my collection.
Yes.
And I couldn't put my hand on what I am preparing for, and definitely I would not have thought that this is the way to prepare for a chief's funeral without even knowing that the chief is going to die.
Yes.
Anyway, so all these things are coming together, and all these different ingredients for the ceremony.
Yes.
Eventually, a few weeks later, not even a few weeks, the night the Grand Chief is ill. Now, my fear was that the chief might die outside of Moruga, because he would also do a lot of traveling around the country.
Yes.
He would stay by other family members, and I was like, gosh, this will not be good if the chief dies out of Moruga, according to our culture.
Yes. Yes.
He's supposed to die here, so that, that final time of his passing
is with his
spirit
people.
leaves the body from these grounds and connects with the spirits of our other ancestors.
Yes, yes.
Yes, it could happen anywhere else, but fine, we want him to die, like you should die here, on your own grounds.
According to tradition, yes.
According to the tradition. So then my cousin calls me, Erik, you need to go visit Grand Chief right now.
Yes.
Because he's very ill.
Yes.
I leave everything that I'm doing, and I go to visit him, and he is ailing terribly.
Yes.
And while I'm there, I could feel his spirit transitioning out of him.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I start immediately the final passage for the prayer that I will now say for the body, for the spirit to leave the body, and to have a safe transition from physical world to spiritual world, and from physical realm to spiritual realm. And then I was also, and in our culture is that you sit at his feet and you asked for his final blessing.
Yes.
And so I did, and I asked, I said, Chief, can I have your last blessing?
Yes.
And will you pass all these ancient blessings on to me?
Yes.
And then he says, yes, at my feet. This is where it is.
Yes.
And I sat there and received. And, for the final time, I asked him, I said, would you need anything to drink? And I presented him his last glass of water.
Yes.
If he needed anything to eat, he couldn't eat anymore.
Yeah.
And I said the final prayer with him.
Yes.
And then every time, while I'm in there with him, I could hear as if someone's outside of his door. I go outside and I see no one.
Yes.
I go back in, I pray with him again. I could hear someone outside again for the second time. I leave and I go out. And then I'm looking at him and I'm like, what is going on?
Yes.
But in my mind, I'm not talking. I'm saying like, what's going on? And that's when his spirit is leaving his body in and out. And I'm like, this is what's happening. Like, I'm witnessing this thing firsthand.
Transitional period.
The transitional period.
Yeah.
And then I'm saying to myself, okay, what if you are praying the prayer of transition and he's not supposed to die now? So like I'm getting, I myself am getting into doubt now.
Yes.
And I'm like, listen. And I'm saying to myself, I said, this prayer is one of the formulas. And I said, whether it's a blessing anyway. And I said, the Almighty will decide what happens here. I said, it's not that I'm praying for the chief to die.
No.
But, for the transition to be smooth, well and good.
Yes. According to the tradition. You're just trying to reclaim and rebuild the tradition. And that's where it starts.
And that's where it starts. And after I would have left, and, I told him, I said, okay, Chief. I said, everything is all well, all good, and I'm finished. And that was literally the last of the chief. He died probably a few minutes later.
Wow. So you were there at his feet, and the people know this. So by tradition, they know.
The last one. And that was that was supposed to happen.
Yes.
Because the fear now is that if he dies and I'm not there, you don't get the final blessing.
Correct.
I would not have gotten the final blessing.
Correct.
For succession.
Yes.
For strengthening my life to always have that.
Yes.
It was a really, really hard moment and a really sore moment.
Yes.
And a hurtful one. But it was part of it all to prepare me for what will lie ahead. Yes. And so immediately after that, I was the one to announce that the Grand Chief had passed. And not anyone else, because that's the order of things.
Wow.
And support started coming in from around the world and from all indigenous groups and so on.
Yes.
And I think that was when a lot of reconciliation between other indigenous groups and us started happening, where even groups who were not, and indigenous groups who were not in agreement with us or didn't see eye to eye, they started, joining us and becoming one with us and supporting me very, very much. I must say I had a lot of support.
Yes.
Which I appreciate, and that support grew into me becoming the Grand Chief now for both Trinidad and Tobago and parts of Venezuela and Suriname.
Correct.
And that in itself that's amazing. That was amazing for me, and it still continues to be. Anyway, so following that, I knew certain things that I'd have to do. I knew I had to do this, I'd have to do that, and the smoking ceremony, the smoke ceremony. Listen, there are two types of smoke ceremony. One, we have the smoking ceremony with the tobacco, and by the way, the tobacco and all of that was already prepared.
Yes, so that's where you actually puff the cigar in your mouth.
Right.
Yes.
That one is a cigar.
Yeah.
Now the other one that we do the ancient ceremonies with would be the ones that we make ourselves, which is probably like 18 inches long.
Yes.
And that one is intense. So when you smoke that, I'm telling you, you go into almost a trance, but it's not a full trance. You are conscious, but you are focused into the realm. Yes. So when we do that, so that is the ceremony that I would have done for the chief's final rite. And that one, and then we'd also have to do like the smoke ceremony to smoke the area, the body,
Yes.
to raise the spirit to the heavens,
Right.
and and to also show that the prayers and the blessing goes up to
Going
heaven
up to heaven.
and
Yes.
goes back to the great creator and the great spirit,
Yes.
etc.
Yes.
So, and then for the box for the placing of items, then you had to have like a deer horn,
Yes.
because he is ruler of the of nature,
Natural kingdom.
and
Yes.
all these different items had to go in the box, the crystals and the talking pieces. Then I also had to speak to certain entities and divinities, etc. during that time.
Yes.
And when I looked at Pope Benedict's funeral,
Yes.
do you know similar traditions are done with the Pope's funeral, that they place all these different things in his box?
Yes.
Similar
And
to
they have
Indigenous
the
funeral.
incense, and they have the incense smoke carrying up the prayers to heaven, just the same as you described. All of that.
It's the same. It's a lot of similarities, and I'm like, when I was in Rome for Pope Benedict's funeral,
Yes.
and I'm like, wow, this is so similar to what we do indigenously,
Yes.
and as ancient ceremonies.
Yes.
And here I am at home, and I'm seeing a similar thing happening. I was like, people a lot of times they look at the differences and they try not to see the similarities, but we have a lot of similarities. And I guess because of the similarities, it made it easier for our ancestors to convert to Catholicism
Correct.
back then, because a lot of the things were the same.
The same. But it's just that the central divinity then of Jesus, I suppose, or that central messenger of Jesus was the difference.
Well, yeah, but I mean, with the whole God thing being put together and how the nature of God is,
Yes.
it still wasn't like a big
No.
paradigm shift then
Yes.
for indigenous world.
Yes.
And that's why they always say that our ancestors were easier to, conquer, in quote,
Yes.
and easier to manipulate.
Yes.
But is that they saw a lot of things that they could have probably relate to.
Yes. In missionary activity. Yes, I understand.
So we have like the sounding of the shell to the east, west, north, and the south, to all the corners, and the blowing of the shell, and the procession with the incense front and back, etc. We had the water ceremony to bless the coffin with the different herbs. So we have like a selection of herbs that we use for cleansing herbs,
Of course.
and not healing herbs because it's a deceased.
Yes.
And these two are also fragrance herbs because it's like myrrh.
Yes.
And then we have all the myrrh and all these different natural incenses from nature,
Yes.
and the incense wood as well,
Yes.
to do all the ceremony. And even while I was preparing my part of it, I'm getting phone calls from different chiefs. All right, and don't forget to put this in.
Correct.
And don't forget you have to have these beads. Don't forget you
Yes.
need to have that.
So the
And you need to get
guidance,
this.
the guidance from existing communities was strong for you then.
Guidance from existing communities was strong, and how that was going to be executed was looked upon with hawk eyes from around the world.
Yes.
After that ceremony, I knew what I was doing. I knew what I was doing. I knew what I was going to do fully well, but I didn't know I was being eyed by devil advocates.
Yes.
And they all said that it was perfectly done.
Excellent.
Some of them applauded. I was like, why are you applauding? So we didn't expect that you would do it so well.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Because I am young, number one.
Yes, of
and
course.
again, other elder chiefs were supposed to be more instrumental in it. But I mean, I did what I was supposed to do.
It was your
I
calling.
believe I was.
It was your calling at the time. It was your time. It was your time.
Yeah.
So, as we're winding down this segment, this part one, what are your major goals concerning relationship with other First People of the Caribbean? That is the ones that you may not have the strongest relationship with at this time. You know, what do you
Those
plan
that
on?
I don't have a strong relationship with,
Yes,
I intend to visit all of the Caribbean again.
yes,
I did so, on different times and different occasions.
yes,
But in my capacity as Grand Chief and as Chief and as Chief as Indigenous people,
yes,
my plan and my hope is to reignite that communion, that Caribbean camaraderie
yes,
amongst indigenous groups through with chiefs and queens and indigenous leaders throughout the Caribbean and throughout the world as much as I can within my lifetime.
yes,
And my plan also is to visit the indigenous communities throughout the Caribbean,
yeah,
make state visits as well. I want the full-fledged thing, just as when any other royal visits you all, just like when Pope, what's his boy? Harry and Meghan visit.
yes, yes, yes,
Indigenous communities need to do the same things
of
for their
course,
indigenous chiefs and
of course,
indigenous people. Have your performances, have your dances, have your ceremonies. I want to be there. I want to be part of that. I want,
yes, yes,
and for me, I think I would really like that to be one of the first things that I'll be doing. And
yes,
similar to what I would have done in Moruga as example of my work, I plan to do the same in, throughout Trinidad, it's
yes,
easy,
yes,
and throughout the Caribbean do the same.
yes,
So some of the things that I'm known for doing is preserving the history and heritage, being a good steward of environment and nature, erecting monuments and statues in honor of our indigenous people, declaring heritage and indigenous spaces,
yes,
and also research and education of our indigenous people. And for me, those are my strong points, and I hope to use this with my people throughout the Caribbean and throughout the diaspora
yes,
of the indigenous realms.
yes, yes. Excellent, excellent. So, finally, what is your message to other indigenous people who may be listening to this?
My message for them would be first, know yourself, find out who you are, and in one way or the other, you have some form of indigenous ancestry and indigenous descent, whether it's from the Native Americans, which we call the Amerindians, which we
Mm-hmm.
call the Kalinago, the Tiano, the
Mm-hmm.
Caribs, the Awaks, the Garifuna, or whether you have just African descent alone, because from Mother Africa we have several different African cultures and tribes that would have been settled here in the Caribbean.
Yes,
And even if you belong to some East Indian culture, etc., that too in back in India is important.
yes,
But
yes,
knowing who we are, recognizing the importance of our cultural heritage. Not that any cultural heritage is superior to another. Not
no,
that one man's skin color or hair texture is better than the other.
certainly not.
None is, because our even player is that.
Yeah,
And if any culture was better than the other, guess what? That heritage of person would never die. They would never
yeah,
suffer. They would never heal. Huh? But we have where ailments and death shows that all cultures and all men are equal.
yes,
And I always like to say that because I don't want people thinking because we belong to something we are more superior than. No, it's never like that.
yes,
But know yourself and take pride in it.
yes,
Take and also pay respect to your ancestors through the way that you live.
of
I'm not
course.
saying that you have to go dig them up and do some ancestral ceremony,
Yes,
but take respect for them, live in respect for them, live in respect with them, and the way that you live with nature, the way that you live in the environment, the way that you live in your homes with your families. And
yes,
that can be some of the biggest changes we could make. You know why? Because their homes and families transforming communities, transform nations, transforming nations, transform the world.
world. Yeah, indeed, indeed. Wise words from the incoming Grand Chief of Trinidad and Tobago, Erik Lewis. I mean, I must tell you, man, this has been gold. It has been a great opportunity, and I'm saying let's plan a part two that we can dig in,
Sure.
see some of the artifacts, probably have a look at your space, and go a bit deeper. But thank you very much, and for doing this such short notice, and we will be congratulating you right up to the point and after. My respects.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
And let me give you all a blessing and a greeting
Please
in
do.
my indigenous language.
Please do. We are honored. Please go ahead.
And right now I'm in the Great Hall.
Yes.
And I'm sitting in the first seat, which is not the throne, which is the first seat before the throne room.
Yes.
And I can't sit there until I become chief, but I'm sitting in the front of it.
Yes.
So I'm going to blow the shell here now.
Yes. Thank you.
Hope I have enough power in me. Ya karibiara kukutuka, ya karibiara tamatuka, jakira tane, ya kaira maraisa, yakira warakitane, dio jakira tamatuka, jakira kukutuka. I just said, all blessings and goodness to all of you.
Yes.
And welcome to all of you who are here. Blessing and goodness to all who hear the sound of my voice, wherever you are, in whichever part of the world. I pray that all blessings and goodness be extended to you, your families, in your space, in everything that belongs to you, and in all that you are. Blessings and goodness. Shakira.
Yes. And we reciprocate that to you, my brother. We reciprocate that to you with, with pureness and singleness of heart. And this has been a true gem. And we look forward to the part 2. Thank you so much. Gratitude. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me. All the best to everyone.
Yes, and same to you. And we will be looking out for pictures and videos of the preparation process, because we know there must be a preparation process. So I hope to do the follow-up interview with you before you ascend.
Yes, we have a preparation process. So right now the throne room is being redone.
Yes.
And because the Grand Chief had died during the time of the construction.
Yes.
So the construction had to cease, and then it's now being redone again. So I guess during this week they have to finish up that throne room and so on.
Fantastic.
And so I have to do herbal baths and meditation and all of that sort of stuff in the forest, etc.
Excellent.
And also my new headpiece has to be made. My new regalia has to be done.
Yes.
As well.
Yes. Excellent. And I know that a lot of these things tend to be shrouded in mystery, but if any of the processes can be shared, any of the making of these very sacred items, we would so appreciate the insight.
I will do a few videos of some of the things, even the tobacco and how it's being prepared and how we do it on our own, how we do it without Western stuff, because our tobacco is grown it's grown 100% organic, number one, because that's for me, that's for high order of things, and that's indigenous stuff, right? So it can't be contaminated by any pesticides or growing fertilizers or anything of the sort.
Of course. Well, we look forward
and
to
then we treat it a certain way, etc.
Yeah.
Sure. So, blessings to you all.
Blessings.
And I wish you all the best.
Yeah, man. Epic interview. Thank you so much. Take care.
You're welcome.